Welcome everybody, my name is Fabio Terezinho and I'll be conducting the tutorial about the custom widgets, which is a new feature in Touch Machine Edition version 8.0 plus Service Pack 1. The agenda has just two topics. First, a quick overview about the objects, the methodology, the whole idea behind the custom widgets, the value proposition to the customers. And then I will demonstrate how to create, design, and deploy a custom widget, a simple custom widget, but showing the main interfaces and the main steps to create one from scratch and then apply it to your projects. So starting with the overview, the main benefits and architecture. Custom widgets is all about bringing openness and flexibility to InTouch Machine Edition and allow users, customers to build an ecosystem of controls and objects or even other vendors and use those controls and link those controls very easily into InTouch Machine Edition applications. So pretty much using this interface you can get the same flexibility and openness that traditionally we did in Touch Machine Edition with external ActiveX controls and .NET controls, but using a different technology that allows you to embed virtually any web control available in the market or any web control that you create. And differently from ActiveX controls and .NET controls, you are not limited to Windows platforms. Then you can, using the built-in Studio Mobile Access feature from Touch Machine Edition, you can visualize your screens, your graphical components with those controllers, even in non-Windows platforms like iOS, iPads, iPhones, Androids running tablets or smartphones running Google Android, as well as obviously Windows as well. So you see here some screenshots from real-world applications where different web controls like Google Maps and charts and weather controls were easily embedded into a InTouch Machine Edition application and can be displayed across different platforms. The design and integration is pretty much divided in two phases that not necessarily are conducted by the same engineer. So the phase one is pretty much when you create the custom widget, and it requires some programming skills. So first, using the IDE, the Integrated Development Environment from InTouch Machine Edition, you literally create a custom widget from the IDE, define the properties and the events that this custom widget will expose to your application tags and scripts. And then you edit an HTML file and a JavaScript file, and that's where you need some skills on those technologies to actually implement the control or link an external control, a pie chart, a bar chart, a Google map, and encapsulate it within the standard custom widget interface. Once it's done once, then this custom widget is automatically available in the library for the project, and then users can just add instances of this custom widget to the application, which is the phase number 2, and just bind tags and scripts to the properties and events created for the custom widget. So the phase 2 does not require any programming skills whatsoever. Consuming a custom widget once it's created is as simple as consuming an ActiveX control or even another native control from InTouch Machine Edition. You just drop on the screen and link tags and scripts to the properties and events from the control. So again, once the phase 1 is done once, the phase 2 can be reused over and over on the same application or even in different applications. So this is the development environment of InTouch Machine Edition. I can create a brand new project here and I call it Custom Widget Tutorial. And here on the Graphics tab from the Project Explorer, I can right click on the screen to create a brand new screen. Can create a button here with the label Exit. So I can call the shutdown function to close the application once I click on the button. And in this particular example, I want to create a custom widget, which is a web browser. so I can display any web page within the screen. This is just an example. The custom widget can be any web-based control, could be a control to display images from cameras, could be charts like pie charts, bar charts, could be literally any web control. In this particular example, I'll create a custom widget, which is a web browser pretty much, and allows the user to display any web page on the screen, which can be customized during the runtime. So I create a property called URL, where the user can customize the URL for the page that must be displayed during the runtime. So in order to do that, first I have to design the custom widget. I can click here in custom widgets, and I don't have any custom widgets in my library at this point. So I can create new, click on new, and give a name to the custom widget, like my web browser. And then here I can click on add properties to add a property called URL. And here in events, I can click on the add button to create an event called page loaded. So every time the control will load a new page, I want to trigger this event, and in Touch Machine Edition, I want to increment a tag so I know that the page was fully loaded. Very well, so now the control is available here in my library. I can click on it and click OK to add the control to my page. And even if I delete it, when I go back now to custom widget, my web browser is automatically available in the library, so I can just select it and add it to the screen. So I can change the size here just like any other control. I can increase the height here, scroll down and make it larger. Very well. Now I want to create a text box so the user can type the URL that should be displayed by the custom widget. So here in tag expression of the text IO, I'll type URL and create a brand new tag, which is a string tag with scope local. So we can type a different URL in each thin client. And here I'll create a rectangle to display in the caption of this rectangle the number of times that the page was loaded. So I create a tag called page loaded counter, which is a new tag. So I'll create as an integer with local scope. Very good. And now I have to link those tags to my custom widget control. So I just double click on it, and here in members I can link the tag URL to the URL property of my custom widget. And here in events I can go to scripts, and every time this event is called, I want to make page loaded counter equals to page loaded counter plus 1. So I increment this tag every time the custom widget calls the event page loaded. Very well, my page is pretty much done. I can save it with the name main. If I want to make it the startup screen on the local viewer, I just right click and set as startup. And since I want to make this page available to SMA thin clients, I open here the mobile access global settings and customize, for example, the process value to 100 milliseconds to define the update rate for data communication between the thin clients and the server. And finally, I just publish the screens as HTML so I can visualize them on the SMA thin clients and web thin clients as well. Even secure viewer thin clients can visualize the custom widgets. So my application is configured, designed the link between InTouch Machine Edition and the custom widget control. Now I need to actually implement the control, create the functionality of being a web browser within my web browser control. So in order to do that, I get the applications directory. So I can call this function here getAppPath, which returns the directory where the application is actually stored. And in this directory, I have the web folder, and under web I have widgets and I have a subfolder with the actual name of my control. In this case, my web browser. It's all done automatically for you as you create the control using the InTouch Machine Edition IDE. And here are the two files that you have to customize, the index.html and the customwidget.js, the JavaScript file. So I'll double click here on the index.html. You can use any text editor. I'm going to use one here with IntelliSense, so it's a little bit faster to type and configure it. So there is a template pre-created for you. I'm going to create something simple. So in the body of the page, I'll create an iframe tag, which pretty much will allow me to show the web browser here. And I'll set the property ID of this iframe to my frame. It's very important to remember this ID because that's the ID name I will use in the JavaScript file to link properties and events from the custom widget properties and events with this iframe tag in the HTML page, which is the actual graphical interface of the custom widget. Then here in style, I can set the width to 100, and I can set the height to 100. So the web page takes the whole size of the control itself. So the HTML page is pretty much done. All I have is an iframe, and in this iframe I have an ID called myFrame, which I can use to reference this control from the JavaScript, and I define the style to take the whole space of the custom widget. Very well, can save it, and now I can open the JS file, the custom widget.js file, to actually implement what needs to be done based on the URL property and the page loaded event. Just like in the HTML page, we already pre-create a template for you, so you can literally fill in the blanks. There is already a call here for the property name. You just replace it with the actual name of your property, and if you have several properties, you just copy this row and keep renaming each row with the name of a different property. In this example, we just have one property, which is URL, so I just need one row. And here in the fire event, in this function, I already have here a placeholder for the event name. In our case, is page loaded. And you can create additional functions if you have more than one event in your custom widget. Now, every time that this property, in this case URL from the control, changes of value, then this function callback is automatically called, passing in this info structure the actual name and value from the property. So here I can manipulate what I want to happen whenever the URL property changes. So to do that, I'm going to create a variable called myFrame and set this variable to document get element by ID and use the ID myFrame, which is the ID I used when I created the myFrame tag in the HTML file. Then I can make here myFrame.onload. So every time that I load something in the frame of the HTML page, I want to link it with the fire event that I have here linked with the event page loaded. Finally, I can set here myFrame.src, the source of the myFrame control in the HTML page, and set it with info.value. And info.value is this structure that returns the actual value of the property URL. So just to recap, whenever the URL property changes on the control, this function is called, and in this function I link the onload event from the myFrame tag in the HTML page with the fire event function that calls the page loaded, and I link the source of the myFrame with with the actual value of the URL property. So this is pretty much done. Now there is one last step, which is in order to access those controls, we use a web server. We use HTTP to actually load the HTML file, the JS file during the runtime. So I need to go to my web server, in this case here IIS, and I already have a site here for InTouch Machine Edition 8.0. So in this folder, I can right-click if I'm using IIS and create a virtual directory called Custom Widget. And as the physical path for this virtual directory, I set the actual directory, this actual path for the application. Here in Connect As, I can define my user. In test settings, make sure the connection is correct. So here under ITME 8.0, I have a virtual directory called Custom Widget, and I'm linking this virtual directory called Custom Widget to the path of my own application. That's pretty much all you have to do. Okay, now back to InTouch Machine Edition. I can run my application. And here in the URL, I can type http schneiderelectric.com, for example. So as soon as the tag schneiderelectric.com changes of value when I type it, it sets the property URL of the custom widget that sets this path to the source of my frame, so I display the actual web page, and you see here the page loaded incrementing as soon as the page was actually loaded. Since we support this solution on the thin clients as well, including the SMA thin clients, I can type here the URL for InTouch Machine Edition, and I want to open the main page. It loads the main page here on the SMA thin client. So I can type here http www.wonderware.com, for example. So it loads the Wonderware web page here on the browser, and it can actually visualize this web page and interact with this web page on the browser. So with this, we finished the demonstration on how to create, design, link, and deploy applications with the custom widgets feature and object. And hopefully it provided the functionality and the information you need to use custom widgets in your projects. And I'd like to thank you for your time and your attention to this tutorial. Thank you very much, and have a great day or great evening whenever you are.